Tonight, I want to discuss OKRs, so objective and key results. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's start. Let's start with OKRs. Um, First thing, OKRs stands for objectives and key results, shortened to OKRs. What is OKRs? I mean, OKRs is a goal setting methodology. So is used to plan and track goals. It can be used for companies, can be used for organizations, sub-organizations. It can be used for teams, for individual teams. It can also be for individuals. You can set your own OKRs, right? So it's a way to set your own goals and measure your progress towards those goals. You can use it at work. You can use it in your real life. I mean, I don't know many people using OKRs in real life, but technically it's possible. So they can be used on different periods of time. So sorry, most commonly are quarterly OKRs and annual OKRs, which means you set objectives for 3 months or for 12 months. Although I have seen also people using monthly and semester OKRs. So it's pretty flexible. There is no limitation. You can use it for any period of time. There are pros and cons, the different approaches. The shorter is the period, the easier it is to plan and deliver because it's a short period of time. So planning what you're going to achieve in, let's say, a week is, I would say, relatively easy. Uh, if I ask someone to plan what they will achieve in a year, is a way more complex, right? There is much more ambiguity. Many more things can happen through the year that will impact your plans. So it's a way more difficult. But in general, there is no fixed limitation. You can use OKRs for any period of time. What are the key advantages of using OKRs? They are very useful in clarifying team and company priorities. So once they are written down, they're shared, everyone should be able to understand what are the priorities. Because usually OKR are also prioritized, they represent the most important things that the team, the organization, or the company should achieve. And at that point, everyone should know what the priorities are. Is very useful. Imagine larger organization or larger companies, if different standard or different methodologies are used across the organization, it's very difficult to share information. While by unifying and introducing OKRs, you have one single way to plan and communicate across the different teams. So you simplify the communication, you make it easier to track against the commitment because you set the commitment at the beginning of the period and then you do periodic updates, right? And so through the updates, you will provide score updates, but also, if needed, additional details about how things are going. Um, and I would say the last but not the least is that you can easily use it to align priority across multiple teams. Imagine my team has something that is the highest possible priority, is a top priority, and I have a dependency on another team. Now I reach out to the other team. They are planning. So I ask them to add this work in their OKRs. They accept it, but they put it as a very low priority, right? I don't have to wait to the end of the period to realize that suddenly they were not able to accomplish the work because it was low priority. I can know this from the beginning of the period, right? I know exactly the beginning that is likely that they will not get to it if they start already setting this as a low priority. So I can approach the discussion at the beginning of the period and maybe using escalation or maybe just having a discussion with the lead of the team. I can just align the priorities across our two teams, which doesn't mean that they have to increase the priority. Maybe I realize that what I'm asking is unrealistic and maybe I should just lower the priority of my work, of the priority of the OKR on my side to just align with the other team. Advantages and disadvantages. I would say there are not big disadvantages. Of course, there is a cost of introducing OKRs. Uh, but in my experience, well done OKRs um, make it clear to teams what is important, what to optimize, which trade-off to make during the day-to-day work, right? Because then when you have a least priority and suddenly you have less resources, it's much easier to make a decision which thing you want to drop because you already have a prioritized and agreed list of plan, right? And objectives. This means that at the end, the results of having OKR implemented in the right way is that you will increase team autonomies. They don't have to escalate every single discussion. They already kind of have a framework of agreed priorities and deliverables. They can move within the framework on their own. And as a result, you will have an increased execution velocity. The team will most probably will deliver much more in this setup. On the opposite, I have seen also very poorly implemented OKR for a number of reasons. They were not a fit for the organization. There was just a single person, maybe with the authority, right? So a senior person pushing for it while the organization was not ready or OKRs were not the right thing for the organization. In all those instances, the result is that what you end up with is you don't get all the advantages of doing this right. And in addition, you get something like big bureaucracy increase across the company because nobody see the value and everyone in the company sees this new additional administrative task they have to do, which the result is exactly the opposite of the potential advantage, which is reduce development velocity and make a lot of unhappiness because people feel that they're just kind of micromanaged. uh, okay, and so this was just my high level introduction. Let me see if there is any. Let me just have a look at the chat. Hi, Joe. Um, so let's take this question from Marbe. Hello, Marco. Ever use KPIs extensively for your planning? Thoughts about this? Yes, I have. Maybe I can come back to this, Marble. Let me just start your comment. The reason is that I want to explain a little bit more what OKRs are and how they are structured, and then we can discuss the difference between KPIs and OKRs and how they relate. Because at the end, KPIs are related to OKRs, but they are different things, and it should be used for a different purpose. OKRs and KPIs are kind of solving different problems. Uh, so Margaret, I just start your question. I'll come back to this maybe after explaining a little bit more about what OKRs are. Hi, Manuel. Okay. So let's start from we said OKRs are objectives and key results. Let's discuss objectives. What are the objectives? The objectives are the what. So objectives explain what is the value delivered for the company, team, organization, or let's say that let allow me to say team, but I'm with team I'm intending any granularity you want to use OKRs for. So in general, my recommendation is each team or organization should have between 3 and 5 objectives. Okay, that's the right number. Too few are usually at risk of not capturing the complete set of goals. Too many might end up spreading the team too thin, and so not getting enough focus to complete. Usually, my experience is not a hard rule, but in my experience, having between 3 and 5 is the right number. I've seen people with 6, 7, it's fine. Uh, Unfortunately, I've seen teams with 100. And I can tell you that a team with 100 objectives will not have an easy time delivering them. And there might be many problems, right, in the way they were planning. So let's say between 3 and 5. They might span multiple periods. So let's assume that now we're discussing about quarterly OKRs. It's okay if we create an objective which will not be completed in this quarter, but it will span across multiple quarters. This, I would say, kind of expected because objectives tend to be large goals. However, it does not have to be, right? You can have objectives that are all contained in a quarter, and it's perfectly fine. But in general, it's kind of accepted that this if they span multiple quarters. Um, how should objectives be written? First and most important things, they should express goals and intents, right? And I'll give you some example of good objectives. They have to be aggressive, but at the same time, they have to be realistic, right? Going on, I don't know, going on the moon by bike might not be realistic. Going, running 2,000 kilometers in a quarter by bike is very aggressive, but maybe is realistic, right? If you're trained enough, you can do it. Now, maybe it's not the best example, but just to give you an idea, you have to give something that the objective has to describe something that is difficult to achieve, but is possible. Um, it has to be tangible. Objectives like be the best, it's not really tangible. Or improve the company is not tangible, right? What does it mean, right? It can have 1,000 of different interpretation. So be specific. At the end of the period or at the end of the multiple period, it should be obvious to everyone reading it if it was achieved or not achieved. Let's take again the example of becoming better. At the end of the quarter, I might have my interpretation of better, and I say, yes, we achieved this. Someone else might say, no, we didn't. We're still bad at doing that thing, right? And so it's important that they are. It's obvious, and there is no room for interpretations. It has to be clear from the way they are written what that objective means. Hmm? This is not really a rule, but it's more a comment. I usually tell people if the objective doesn't fit one line, then it's not crispy enough. I've seen people writing, I don't know, a paragraph for an objective. Now, a paragraph, not but 3-4 sentences, yes, for an objective. And it was like, no, dude, this is not how you write an objective, right? Tell me in one sentence what you're going to achieve, right? Short, crispy, easy to understand. Let me give you some example. Good example of objective can be things like become the most used messaging app on the Apple Store. Okay. Depends if you are Threads or if you're Twitter or if you are WhatsApp, right? Name one. It might or might not be aggressive enough because maybe you're already the most used or the most downloaded, let's say. In other cases, if you are a small new app, maybe is pretty aggressive. But at the end of the quarter, there's no discussion. Easy to understand. Are we the first or not? Achieve, not achieve. There's no room for discussions. Or things like register more new customer per month than our largest competitor. If those information are public, because those are public company, you know exactly how many new customer or new users they register, compare with your number, decide if you achieve or not, right? So these are example. They're big, they're very aggressive in the majority of the case, they're tangible, they express goals, intents. I want to become, right? They're not explaining how. They're not telling you how. They're telling you what. What is the end state? What is the place we want to be at the end of this period? Here we are. This is what objectives are. KR, key results, instead are capturing the how. So in this part, in the KRs, you describe a set of deliverables, not tasks, that will allow to achieve the objective. What does it mean? What it's not KRs are not about doing something. They are about delivering something. Let me give you an example. Uh, Collaborating with team X on this feature. It's not a deliverable. This is a task, right? How do I score this at the end of the period? How do I know? How do we score? Did I collaborate with them? I don't know. I met them once. I would say yes, done, right? Instead, a better way to write this is focus on the deliverable. What is the deliverable of the collaboration? Having a shared agreed design document. Good. Then the KR should be deliver a shared agreed design document agreed with team X. At the end of the quarter, there's no discussion. Is the design doc yes there? Yes or no? End of the story, right? So very easy to score, very clear what the team will focus on. Is not about the action, is about the deliverable. KRs tend to be, this is very common. You might be familiar with the concept of SMART goals, right? SMART goals apply in multiple contexts. It's not just for KRs, but usually KRs has to qualify as SMART. What does it mean? SMART is an acronym of specific. So scope is clear, tangible, no discussion, no ambiguity. Is measurable. So at the end of the quarter, done or not done. Measurable here can have multiple connotation. It can be measurable in the sense that it's something that either you have done or you haven't done, like delivering the design document or delivering an important milestone of a product, or it can be a metric driven, like a KPI, right? So you can say improve revenues by 20%. You're not saying how you do that, but you're saying that you will deliver a 20% increase in revenues. Is measurable? Of course it is. I would expect you have a KPI that is measuring your revenues, or you get a report from someone with your revenues. By the end of the quarter or the end of the period, you will get the report. You will check with the previous period, and you will know if you achieve 20% more or not. Like objective is important that they are aspirational, right? So they are stretch goals to some extent. They have to be difficult, but again, they have to be achievable, right? This is the A of SMART. The R, they have to be relevant. So it's something that it's important for the company, for the organization, for the team, and if achieved, remember KRs are part of an objective. If achieved, they will improve or they will get more of the objective done, right? So they will move the progress of the objective they belong to. And the last, the T, they are time bound. While for the objective, we said is okay if they span multiple periods. For the KRs, it's important that they are within the period. So if I'm planning for a quarter, it has to be this quarter. At the end of this quarter, it has to be achieved. Now, as usual, because they are aspirational and they're difficult, we may not achieve 100% of them. And I have to say, is not even desirable. You don't want to have 100% of all your OKRs achieved. Otherwise, if I see a team with every time 100% of everything achieve after a few periods, I would just reach out and say, hey, you are not you're not aggressive enough. You're setting OKRs that are too easy because you always do 100%, right? So it's important that they are achievable, but they're not easily achievable. In general, as we discussed with objective here as well, uh, we can have multiple. We need to have multiple KR, so key results for each objective. Again, there is no perfect number, but again, the range between 3 and 5 is a good range to be. So let's say we take a team. For each team, I would expect each of they have between 3 and 5 objective. Each objective 3 to 5 KRs. Okay, so this is a number that usually is easy to manage and is possible to capture the top priorities. What is important is KRs are used to drive a change. So all the example I gave you are about the change, become the most loved app, the most downloaded app, the most used app, or become the best in a specific field, whatever is the definition of best that you want to use, but be specific, define what best mean. So in all this connotation is about making a change. Everything which is not about making a change is not a good fit for OKRs. Example like keep your SLA or SLO, so your service level agreement or service level objectives stable, or keep respecting all staying within a specific reliability threshold, or all these objectives that are more operational and about day to day, that are not about making a change but are about keep delivering something. They are usually not a great fit for OKRs. Those are better tracked as a KPI. Right? So to Marbe, going back to Marbe question earlier, um, when someone asked me the difference between KPI, so key performance indicators, and OKRs, is usually that KPIs are just the metric you use to measure performance. OKRs instead are used to lead a change. So to simplify this, achieving a KPI improvement could be a KR. The example we gave before about improve your revenues by 20%, there is a change that is required to achieve an improvement on a KPI. That is a very reasonable KR, but maintaining a status quo, keep doing something you're doing, that's not a good way to use KRs. You should just set KPIs and said, okay, our team has these KPIs, and we have to guarantee that these are maintained. These are the targets, and we never go below those targets. Marble, let me know if this was if I answer your question or you meant something else. Okay, now let me stop for a second. Before moving on, there's one important thing that I haven't mentioned. Objective, but more important, key results require ownership. If they are at team level, it's not that the team will deliver. Yes, the team will deliver that thing, and everyone who is required to contribute will have to contribute, but they should have clear ownership. Who is the person within the team accountable for those? Who is the owner? This is important because if you don't have a clear owner and a clear accountability on who is driving the work, not who is doing all the work, but who is driving the work, then you are at risk that at some point the KR or the objective are dropped because nobody knows who has to take care of them. And then suddenly at the end of the period, you are there to score and you realize nothing has been done. Right. So it's absolutely important that you have clear ownership. Okay, and with this one, I pause for a second. Let me see. Hi, everyone who joined. Good evening. Good evening. Let's get this one from Joe. Who decides the OKR? Is it a company level? It it's um, it's at all level. So you can have company OKRs, you can have organization OKRs, you can have team OKRs, you can also have individuals OKR. You can set OKRs for yourself. Uh, I mean, Google is one of the biggest company using OKRs, most probably one of the most successful. There are people, a lot of people using OKRs for their own goals and objective. Sometimes they just keep it private. They don't even share them, but they use as a framework to plan what they have to do. But in general, when you have a multiple level of OKRs, the expectation is that if you have company OKRs and then you have organization OKR and then you have team OKRs, uh, OKRs don't cascade. That's not the idea, but they have to be used to inspire. So let's say my company, then the company set as a OKR becoming, let's say that we are releasing, we have a messaging app, right? Because I just used the messaging app as an example. We have a messaging app, and the objective is to double the number of users for our app. Now, it doesn't cascade as it is in the different organization. But what the other organizations should look at is, oh, this is a company objective. What can my organization do to contribute to that? Oh, let's say our team is responsible for the UI and for the UX. Yeah, okay. So let's run some studies or try to test some other option or improving different parts of the UI to facilitate user acquisition. I'm just making this up, right? But that the concept is each organization should just get influenced and inspired by the company, but should not just take those and set it as their own, right? It's not that my organization should take that objective, said, okay, we will. Our objective is to improve by 20%, because they might not be in the condition to do that, but they might be in the condition to do some work that will allow other part of the organization to achieve the 20% increase. Yeah. Let's see next. Riccardo, in project management, what is the best way to make the entire team understand the importance of the project and consequently to complete all the tasks and OKR in the best possible way? Is this responsibility of the project manager? Okay, so I think there are multiple points in this. Let me try to split my answer. First part, what is the best way to make the entire team understand the importance of a project? This is not only project manager responsibility. This is responsibility of why are we doing this project? Why is it important for the company? Maybe it's the CEO who has the responsibility to explain that that specific project is key for the company strategy, right? Our company will grow this much and we expect to grow this much in the next 2 years if we achieve to complete this project, right? Imagine a CEO saying, making a statement like this, and just make clear to everyone the importance of a specific project. In some other cases, you will not get the CEO, but you will get someone else. So it's not just the project manager responsibility. It was not the project manager who just woke up one day with the idea of doing that project. Most probably this was required by sponsors, stakeholders, and many other people internally or externally to the company. So it might be the project manager responsibility to be sure that these information are communicated and are and make the entire project team aware of this information, so of the importance of the project. But it's not the responsibility of the project manager to come up with justification about why we are working on this. Similarly, as a consequence, if this was clear now that this is important to accomplish this, it's not the project manager responsibility to push and pull people to get them to complete the task and the OKRs. The role of project manager is to help people completing their task, be sure they have what they need, they have resources, they have the information, help removing roadblocks, facilitate collaboration across team, be sure the stakeholders are well informed about the progress. Those are responsibilities of the project manager. Responsibility of completing the task is on the individuals that own that part. Now, the project manager might be the person responsible to lead the discussion about how do we split all the work that has to be done to complete this large project into things that we can distribute in terms of ownership. That's absolutely part of the project manager responsibility to lead or facilitate this discussion. But it's not that it's just the project manager doing something in his own corner and then waking up a day. And I know that is not what you meant, Ricardo, but just to say, in some places I heard people saying, oh, but this is not clear. Is we don't nobody understand why this project is going on. Is the project manager fault? Maybe the project manager didn't communicate clearly and the information was there, but many times it's just that the company itself doesn't know why they're doing that work, right? And so it's not just the project manager responsibility. The project manager responsibility might be to flag that there is no clarity, but it's not the project manager's responsibility to come up with any information the team needs. Yeah. Let's see, Marbe. Is always that easy to put things into numbers for your experience? Is not. Putting things in numbers is very difficult. But if you don't know how to do it and you don't try to do it, you're just postponing the problem. If my CEO is telling me, Marco, I want more revenues, the first question I ask is, how much is more? If they can't tell me, then we have a problem. They are giving me an objective that I might never be able to achieve because in their head is 200% and in my head is 5%, right? And so it's a discussion that I need to have at the beginning. And if they don't know, maybe I can work with the finance team or any other team with the right data, the data team, and come up with a proposal. And I go back to the CEO. I said, hey, based on the data I've seen, I believe that realistic is 20%, aggressive is 25 to 30%. I would go for 30% and let's see how close we get to it. If the CEO said, no, no way, I want 200%, then we have a problem. But it's better to have the problem at the beginning and try to solve this before getting into the work, and then the entire project be considered failure just because it was not clear what the goal was. So in some cases it's very difficult. In some cases you have to give up on numbers and you have to agree on something else, like imagine launching a complete new product which might require a year to be completed. Now, it's a new product. You most probably don't have much data. But at the same time, you're not going to move the needle on any metric for a year because you're working on it, right? So through the year, you're not going to get more revenues. You're not going to get more users. You're not going to get more downloads because the app is not there, right? So you're working on it. So you have very little room for using numbers. What you can do is to use key milestone. Okay, in the first 2 months, we complete the design. The next two, we complete the implementation of the backend. Then we have 3 months for the front end. Then we have 2 months for, I don't know, delivering for the alpha or the beta, getting feedback, and then looking at everything else. And of course, this is oversimplifying the situation because it's not that linear. You don't do pieces like this one after the other. But just to give you an idea, you can set up milestone and then deliver the milestone. Even if you don't know how to measure success of those milestone, you achieve the execution of that part of the project by delivering the milestone. And then as the time goes and you have more experience and more data, you can start setting up more measurable goals. Shivolizia, should the OKR setting proposal be bottom up or top down or somewhere in between? I like this. Uh, Thanks, Shivolizia. It depends. It depends on the company. Someone last time um, mentioned MBOs, right? MBOs stand for management by objectives, which is similar to OKRs, but the main difference is that MBOs tend just to focus on the what. So it's not exactly like this, but just to simplify the explanation, imagine MBOs like just the objectives. They don't have the KR, so they don't have the how. So they are at risk of not having clear measures of the progress as you have with OKRs, because you can rely on the specific key results and you can say it achieve, not achieve, achieve, not achieve. MBOs tend to stay more broad. And one of the things that people tend to say, but I kind of I'm not sure I disagree, but I kind of have some reserve about it, is that OKRs are bottom up and MBOs are top down. I tend to disagree because I think that that's just a symptom, is not the root cause. It might be true, but it's true because MBOs have been around for much longer than OKRs and tend to be used by more risk adverse organization and companies, so more old fashioned companies, which tend to operate more top down. And so they use MBOs and they happen to be top down. And so MBOs are top down. But I don't think the problem is the MBOs, because you could use MBOs in some way in a bottom up approach. Similarly, OKRs, yes, it's true, they can be completely bottom up, but it's also true that they can also be used top down. In fact, to be honest, my recommended, it largely depends on the size of the org and the company, but what I would do as a best practice is have the top of the company, so the executive team, setting some company objectives in the form of OKRs or in the form of a company strategy. That's irrelevant, but they set clear objectives, something they want to achieve by end of the year. Those should just influence the OKRs of the rest of the company. The rest of the company should look at those 3, 4, 5 company objectives or company strategy, said, okay, my team cannot contribute to all. We can contribute on this 3. Okay, what can we do to contribute to this 3? Oh, okay, let's think about it and just write down this in the form of OKRs. So what you will have then is objective and key results that are bottom up because they have been prepared by the team, but they are influenced by what the company wants. So they're not completely top down, but there is a big influence. This is important because if you don't do this and you just let each team coming up with their own, you are at risk that you will have every team planning what they believe is best, which is at risk of having all team pushing in different direction because they don't completely understand what the priority of the company is. So yeah, a little bit of digression about MBOs, but I hope Shulitz, I have this is a topic that I care a lot because I think it's important to find the right mix between top down and bottom up. That's key for the success of OKRs. Otherwise, it just become a bureaucracy. Okay. Uh, let's move on. I just a few points that I wanted to cover. Okay, I think I already mentioned this, but to stress this again, um, one of the key feature of OKRs is that if you use them correctly, you can in a simple way, coordinate the work across multiple teams, align priorities. So, as results, if different teams agree on collaboration, this should be reflected as OKR in both teams. So, both teams will say complete this part of this work based on what they agreed to do. And this is very powerful because one of the things that is most difficult to accomplish in large organization is getting other team to deliver on dependencies because it's easy to deprioritize them. Many times it's not their own priority to deliver them, and so by having this formalized in OKRs, they kind of get a formal commitment that they are going to do it. Okay, the other topic I wanted to discuss is scoring. And then after this, I think I'm done with all the key parts I wanted to cover here. But how is scoring done? Usually, especially in the more mature organization, the scoring is a range between 0 and 1. So is the percentage of the completion. So 1 is 100% completed, 0.7 is 70% completed, so on and so forth. 0 is 0% completed. This works well, but require the ability to quantify the work done in a reliable way. An alternative, which I usually recommend when new organization approach OKRs, is to use the semaphore approach: green, amber, red. You don't have a granular information like you have with exact scoring, but here is the point. If I ask people to provide me a precise score and they don't know how to compute the precise score, they will just throw a random number there. Maybe they believe, okay, we have done something, right? But they will put just a number in a range, which doesn't mean much. But as a receiver of the number, I would just say, oh, look, this is the precise number of the score of the work they have done, right? So it kind of here you need to find the right balance, because it's always better to have a coarse score like green, amber, red with high quality. So if someone is telling you I'm amber, they are amber. Instead of getting a very precise number, 0.25, but which has low quality because they just made up a number in a place. It's much better to have a semaphore with high quality than a precise number with low quality, because it's giving you much better insights. OKRs are a score at the end of the period. So let's say quarter, you score it at the end of the quarter after 3 months. And then you have intermediate scores. If you're planning for a quarter or for a semester, usually you have monthly updates. So at the end of each month, you provide a score update for the KR and for the objective. How do you do this? There are two different ways. There are one way is to use the forecasted score. So let's say this is the first month of the quarter. I've done some work. I'm still convinced that by the end of the quarter, I will get to 100% of the work done. So even if I haven't completed yet the work, I will score after 1 month 1. So 100%. Because that is the forecast of where I will get by the end of the quarter. The other option instead, which is the one that is more intuitive, is I score the amount of work I've done. So in the first month, I have done 50% of the work. I score 0.5. As I progress, the following month will have an increase, usually, number. While in the other, because it's a forecast, usually it tends to go down instead of going up. You're very confident you will do 100%, and then over time something happens, reality show up, and then you realize you will just close 0.6 or 0.7. Both approaches, they either of them have pros and cons. Of course, it's important that across the company, one of the two is used. So either everyone is using the forecasted, or every single team is using the actual score, because otherwise it will just result in a huge mess, right? Data will be completely inconsistent. So it's important that you decide in one. Now, from a as I said, it's more intuitive to use the actual score, but tend to be the less useful. Let me explain you why. As someone consuming and seeing the OKR reports, if I read a specific team saying that at the end of the first month, they are 0.5. Okay, so they already completed 50% of the work. Do I know if they will complete 100% of the work by end of the quarter? I don't. Work is almost never linear, right? So the fact that they completed 50% of the work in the first month doesn't mean they will complete 100% in 3 months. Maybe the initial plan was to complete 70% of the work in the first month, and then 20, and then 10, and then suddenly they're doing 50%, right? So me reading the score, if I don't get additional information with comments, people telling me, okay, we have a delay. If they don't say so, by just reading the score, I don't understand if they are on track or if they are delayed, right? So it's way more intuitive to use this, but to some extent is less useful for people reading it. On the opposite, if you use the forecasted, the focus is always on the end of the quarter or end of the period score, which means that after a month, I read the OKR score, and is 1.0, so it's still 100%. I don't know if any work has been done in the quarter, in the month. Is it important or not? Someone could say, who care? I trust the team to do the work. If they tell me that it's going to be finished by end of the quarter, that's enough information for me, right? I don't want to know if they have done everything already or if they will do it next month. The reality is that in the forecasted, what you will see is that we are always optimistic. So you will see 100%, 100%, and then suddenly at the very end of the quarter, you will see the score dropping, because that's when reality kick in, and then you said 100%, 100%, 100%, 50%, right? Oh, we realize we are not going to make it. So tend to be overall a little bit more lower in quality. But from my experiences, using the forecasted is more useful than using the actual score. Yeah, and that's it for the scoring. See if there is any question, anything. Nope. Okay, so the very last thing I have a couple of FAQ, frequently asked question that I usually people ask about OKRs. Just a couple of key one. The first that I usually people ask me is, what do we do with unfinished KRs? So now we have this objective. We're supposed to complete all the KRs. We completed only half of them. Should we just carry over to the following period everything that is not completed? Is that the rule? We take everything and we move it to the next quarter or next semester or next year? It depends. It depends on why you didn't complete the work, right? So one good reason is the company changed the priorities. Said, okay, that in the middle of the period, that work is not important anymore. Or maybe it's important, but it's not a priority anymore. So please spend your team on this other more important thing. If that's still the case, there is no reason to just carry over to next quarter because you're not going to work on it anyway because it's not a priority anymore. So you should just add, we did 50% of the work and we're just leaving it there because we move on to other priorities. Perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. Another reason for not carrying this over to the following quarter is there is a major blocker, and that blocker is not going to be unblocked in the following quarter. You know already it's something huge. It will take multiple quarters to just unlock. So there is no reason to just carry this over to again score it as block. The following quarter, just park, and then maybe in few quarters you will just pick it again and put in the list of the work you want to work on. And I would say that the last um is sometime because you want to set very aggressive goals. Um, Sometime you set a very aggressive goal, but you are okay not achieving 100% of it. Right. So let's say you have a very, very aggressive goal of doing 30% more sales revenues. You achieve 28 or 25, and you said, okay, fine. That was very great result. You score 0.8 or 0.9 your KR and said, okay, the revenue increase was in line with the goal. We're not going to work on it next quarter again, right? Because we have to work on increased reliability or in something else that will require all the resources we have. So that's another good reason. Pick this question from Shivolizia. In my company, we use a monthly metric for the check-ins. For example, if we have SKR reach 1,000 monthly sales, we have first month 500, second month 750, and third month 1K. It makes sense. It makes sense. It requires to split KRs in sub KRs. That's what actually you're doing. It makes sense. I think is a reasonable approach. Interesting that is not linear, right? They're saying, okay, we get half of the goal in the first month, and then the remaining half is split at 250 on the other two. If that's realistic, absolutely fine. I think that's sounds like a good approach. Okay. Oh, Shulitz is saying it was just an example, the numeric part. Yeah, no, but I like the example because it makes sense, right? So the problem of just splitting in even parts, right? So you said, okay, it is 600. We do 200 for each month. Is that a decision, or you're just making up the fact that your monthly sales are linear? Because let me give you an example. If you ask me, let's say you set up an OKR for 6 months, and the OKR is to do 1 million in sales over the last 6 months of the year. You can't do it linearly because in the last 3 months you have Christmas, you have Black Friday, you have Thanksgiving. So most probably of that amount, 80% will come from the last 2 months, right? So it doesn't make any sense to do it linearly. But if you have evidence that in this specific case or in any other case, you have a linear progression, then yes, having intermediate KRs makes sense. I mean, it also makes sense in a non-linear fashion, but the point is that it has to be meaningful. If someone take a number and split by 3 without checking if that's realistic, they might be yelling at people because they are in delay and then realize that they were not in delay. It's just that the sales will all materializing at the end of the quarter. Okay. Let me see if I have any other FAQ that I want to. Oh, okay. This one I think is interesting. A lot of people ask if it's possible to revisit KRs during the quarter. In general, it's possible, but it has to be done in not unilaterally. What I mean, let's say that a specific team is setting a goal of reaching 1,000 new users, and then half through the quarter they said 1,000 is too much, right? Let's put 800, and then they unilaterally update the targets to 800, and then a month later they update to 500, and then before scoring the end of the quarter they update to 200, right? And they said, oh yeah, great, we did 200, right? We achieved the goal. This is what you don't want to have. But on the other side, you want the goal to be realistic. So if something major change, and now the goal of getting 1,000 is no way achievable, is the company said, okay, we lay off the entire sales team. So now we have nobody taking care of sales. Having an OKR of 1,000 new user doesn't make any sense. Or if just something has changed, like the priorities of the company, it's okay to update it. But it has to be something that the team suggests to the leadership, saying, hey, based on these changes, we would like to update the goal to this number. And the leader said, yeah, fair, you should update the number, right? So there should be some discussion and some approval of the new score. It cannot be done unilaterally. Otherwise, it becomes just an easy way to cheat the entire model and just keep updating the score. So it's not your progress that is going up. It's just the score that is just the target that is going down. Yeah, I think that's the last thing, which is not an FAQ, but the last thing that I wanted to say is introducing OKR is a very difficult task. It is a large change management process, especially if done at company scale. I have done this at Kraken. It is very challenging because to do this right, you have to understand the company culture, figure out how to introduce the methodology in a way that is working, and then roll out this, educate the people, uh, be sure that there is the right tooling in place. So there is a set of things that you have to do to prepare the rollout of something like OKRs. It's not just enough to announce the entire company, hey, from next quarter we're going to do OKRs, because otherwise it will not work. So Shivolice is asking if Kraken is using OKRs. I don't know. I'm not a Kraken anymore. But when I was there, I introduced OKRs in a structured way. So I can't say if they're still using it. I would say I believe yes. I believe yes. Okay. And with this one, I am done with all the material I had for OKRs. If there is any question about anything at this point, OKRs or careers or anything else, go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I will just wait. I'm just waiting 2 minutes in case people are typing. Otherwise, I think we can close here. Just grab some water and see if anyone is typing a question. It looks like no, I already answered your question, which is great. So, thanks everyone. I think we can close it here for today. Have a great night, and we see each other next Monday. Thank you.